Hi, my name is Melissa DeWeese, and I help employers maximize their employee benefit spend to attract and retain the best talent. And today is quite a news day. I want to update you on some current events that are pretty breaking and also are related to some of the previous videos that I have done. So let's get into this. I want to make sure that you're aware that the IRS just released a 2023 ACA Affordability Decrease to 9.12%. What exactly does this? What we have done in years past, most of us have determined affordability for healthcare plans based off of 9.5% of annual income. So if you want to learn more about the ACA, I had another video here. It's quite in depth. There's a lot to the Affordable Care Act. And this particular percentage applies to employers that are offering health benefits that are over 50 full-time eligible FTE applicable large employers. The previous rate was 9.61%. We always rounded to 9.5 just to be safe, because you don't want employees paying more than 9.61% of their annual income for their health insurance. If employees are paying more than the 9.61%, you could be subject to a penalty as an employer if you are an applicable large employer. Okay? And it's just 50 full-time equivalent employees that make you an applicable large employer. That has been reduced to 9.12%. So basically, if an employee is paying more than about 9% of their annual earnings towards health insurance, then you could be, as the employer, subject to a penalty. So this is a pretty big drop, especially when we are staring down the barrel of a gun in the economy and looking at a recession. You know, the growth rate has been decreasing the last 2 quarters, and even though the jobs reports do not yet reflect it, we are seeing a decrease in job listings. Remember that jobs are a lagging indicator. We don't know what's going to happen with the jobs number. If history repeats itself, the unemployment rate will go up. It's at 3.5% now, and it was at 3.6% last month. IRS released this god-awful thing. What is this? Revenue procedure. So RevProc is short for Revenue Procedure 2022-34, indexing adjustments for certain provisions under the Internal Revenue Code. In particular, it updates the applicable percentage table for calendar year 2023. This table is used to calculate the individual's premium tax credit. The revenue procedure also updates the required contribution percentages for plan years beginning after plan year 2022. This percentage is used to determine whether an individual is eligible for the affordable employer-sponsored minimum essential coverage. This revenue procedure uses the method described in Section 4, Revenue Procedure 2014-37, 2014-2 CB 363 to index the applicable percentage table in section blah 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 blah. Let's see if they give us the table. Household income. So this is the federal poverty line. So if a person had less than 133% of the federal poverty level of their household income, they qualified for a tax credit or a subsidy if they enroll through an exchange, a state exchange. So these are the percentages required contribution for 2023. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Beginning in calendar year 2023, section 36B, required contribution percentage for purposes of 36B, C2, C1, 2, and 1.36B2, C3, C is 9.12. Okay. This revenue procedure is effective for taxable years and plan years beginning after December 31st of 2022. I think when people see affordability decreases, when you see decrease, you think, oh, a decrease is good in correlation to tax stuff. But this is not good for employers. Will have to adjust all of those calculators, and the IRS will be able to penalize employers. It is $4,000, like $127. I will look it up. Stand by. So again, anybody, you have to be an applicable large employer to be subject to the penalty. So you have to have at least 50 full-time employees or full-time equivalents. So you could have a bunch of part-time employees that add up to be an equivalent full-time employee, and that makes you subject to the penalty. So this is part of the presentation that I did in my previous video, which I linked earlier. And I wanted to show you the penalty number here. So for those employers that do not participate in health insurance for their employees, we refer to those as pay or play mandates. And for those who are deciding to pay, which means they're going to just pay the penalty, originally that penalty was $2,000 per employee. And for those who decided to play, which means they're trying to do the right thing, they're offering benefits to their employees, if they do not offer affordable coverage, they offer benefits, but the coverage that they're offering, the employees have to pay more than 9.1 some odd percent. So we'll call it 9%. So if the employee is paying more than 9% of their household income for benefits, then those employers will also possibly get a penalty. And that used to be $3,000. Well, that is now $4,120 per employee. So let's say you're cruising along, you've offered benefits, you don't think you have to worry about this stuff, and one of your employees goes in and qualifies for a subsidy. That subsidy is the trigger. The IRS sends you a letter and says they calculate how many full-time employees you have that are possibly paying too much for their insurance, and they send you a letter stating you owe thousands of dollars to the IRS. So in a nutshell, that's basically how it goes. And here is the amount. Sorry, that was so big before. So here it is. For calendar year 2022, so this is going to go up as well and probably be adjusted. It was the $2,000, and that has gone up to $2,750 per employee for those who are not offering insurance. And then for those that are offering insurance, that fee used to be, or that fine or penalty or mandate used to be $3,000 per person, and now it's going up to $4,120 per person. That's in 2022. And so next year it's going to be even more than that. Let's just go through this article together, make sure I'm not missing anything. I am not an attorney. I'm also not a tax professional. This is not tax advice. I work in employee benefits, so I keep my eye on this stuff and my ear to the ground to watch any changes that come up. And as a reminder, the ACA requires ALEs to offer affordable minimum value coverage to their full-time employees and dependents or face penalty. Based off of the 2023 affordability rate, ALEs are applicable large employers whose plan years begin January 1st, 2023 through June 1st, 2023 will automatically meet the affordability requirement if they offer at least one plan that costs employees less than the $103.28 per month for self-only coverage under the federal poverty level. So that is the safe harbor. See below for distinctions for plan years beginning after July 1st, 2023, as well as a further discussion on alternative ways employers can meet the affordability requirement. Compliance snapshot. For plan years beginning in 2023, ALEs, or applicable large employers, must offer at least one plan where the cost of self-only coverage is less than 9.12% of their household income. ALEs with plan years beginning January through June of 2023 that offer at least one plan that costs employees less than $103.28 a month for self-only coverage will meet the 2023 affordability under the safe harbor, the federal poverty level, the FPL, federal poverty level, safe harbor. ALEs who use an affordability safe harbor other than the federal poverty level, i.e. W-2 or rate of pay, may rely on the 9.12% rate. Note that employers are permitted to use the federal poverty guidelines in effect 6 months prior to the beginning of the plan year to calculate affordability under federal poverty level safe harbor. So you can do these calculations 6 months prior because the federal poverty levels change every single year. So depending on the timing of when your plan goes into effect, the federal poverty level might be changing. The 2023 federal poverty amount will be released in early 2023, and employers with plan years beginning after its release may use that number to calculate affordability. Noting that the plan years beginning July through December 2023 are required to use the 2023 federal poverty amount to calculate the affordability explained further below. Which employers are considered applicable large employers under ACA? And we just went over that. You've got the 50 or more, or if you have 50 or more full-time equivalents. So if you have part-time employees, there's a calculation for that. And I went over that in my previous video. What types of coverage must an ALE offer under the ACA? So under the ACA, the employer mandate ALEs must provide affordable coverage. So it's the definition of the IRS, that 9.16%. So it has to cost less to the employee than the 9% of their income. You also have to offer minimum value coverage to full-time employees and their dependents, or potentially face a penalty. So there are certain plans that qualify for minimum value, so you have to be really careful with that and make sure you're offering those minimum value plans. And this goes on to describe what is minimum value coverage. It is a group plan that meets the minimum value coverage requirement if it pays at least 60% of the total allowed costs of benefits that are expected to be incurred by a plan and substantially covers inpatient hospital and physician services. So there are specific guidelines to exactly what minimum value means. We call them MVP plans. Minimum value plans are basically bronze plans. And there's also MEC plans, which are minimal essential coverage plans. And I went over minimal essential coverage and what is covered under minimal essential in my previous video. How can employers determine whether their coverage is affordable under the ACA? For plans starting in 2023, ALEs must offer at least one plan that costs an employee less than that 9% of their household income. ALEs can utilize one of the following three safe harbors to determine whether or not they meet the affordability testing requirements, the federal poverty level is one way. The rate of pay is another, and the W-2 is the third. So coverage will be affordable if the cost of the employee's coverage for self-only coverage on the lowest cost plan offered is less than the 9.12% of the federal poverty level, which is determined annually. For 2023, employers with plan years beginning January through June 2023 will meet the federal poverty level safe harbor if they offer their full-time employees at least one plan that costs less than $103.28. For Alaska, it's a little bit more, and for Hawaii, it's more. The rate of pay. So you can look up the employee's rate of pay and base it off of the 9.12%. This safe harbor will be met if the cost of the employees for self-only coverage is less than the 9.12% of their monthly salary or hourly wage if multiplied by 130. W-2, if the safe harbor, you can get another spreadsheet, look at the employee's prior W-2 and go off the 9.12% or previously 9.61%. This approach is generally not recommended as employers will not know the exact wages reported until the end of 2023. And there's also some legislation about non-discrimination testing and how you cannot base an employee's cost of a plan off of their wages. So there's some complexity there as well. What is the simplest method for employers meeting affordability? The easiest method is the FPL safe harbor because it allows employers to determine a single amount that is considered affordable for all employees, basically, regardless of their income. So that helps when you're looking at discrimination testing, making sure that it is not based off of an employee's income solely will help you with your discrimination testing for your POP plans and other plans that may need non-discrimination testing. What about non-calendar year plans? How can employers meet affordability? What are penalties? So penalty, like we just went over, for 2023 is $2,880 annualized. But if the employer is offering coverage, it's that $4,120 that we just went over. And the penalties are broken down monthly here as well, which is a great little visual, because let's say perhaps it was affordable for the employee and then halfway through the year something changes and then it becomes unaffordable and the employer is not aware of that for whatever reason or doesn't catch it. They can be penalized on a monthly basis rather than for the whole year. So that is why this monthly figure is important. Thanks for hanging out with me today. That's my update regarding the affordability guidelines from the IRS that's been updated to the 9.12%. If you have any questions and you are a client, I have a link down below where you can schedule a meeting with me, or you can simply email me your questions. If you are not a client, I do require a questionnaire to be completed ahead of time before we meet. I offer a 30-minute consultation, absolutely free, and we will see you next time.